What's going on, Canes fans? Welcome to the Canescast. I'm your host, Kyle Hynode, joined with Kevin Smith, the co-host. And this is a couple days past the UVA game. We scrapped the UVA preview podcast, had some things come up and some issues. So we just scrapped it, gave ourselves a break for the week, and now we are coming on the week before Georgia Tech. We'll talk a little Georgia Tech and just talk about the weekend in college football and what our thoughts are on the win against Virginia. So that being said, yeah, man. Well, I guess at this point, whatever we want to happen, we just need to pick the opposite of what we
Hey,
think is going to happen because
I picked us to win. All right, so don't
yeah,
love me.
you did pick us to win. So I guess since we scrapped the pod for anybody listening, let's see. I thought I was going to be on point this season. I thought this would be an easy season to predict and kind of judge where Miami would be. Spot on with the Florida game, obviously, and then North Carolina. Look, we picked North Carolina to win. I mean, Miami to win. North Carolina proved us wrong. Bethane's easy. Central Michigan's easy. And then you pick them to win against Virginia Tech. Doesn't happen. And then I finally pick them to lose against a team that I was screaming they would win by 2 touchdowns. And what happens? They end up winning. And so, and what's crazy about it is the reason I screamed all year on Twitter that Miami was going to win big is because, one, I figured the offense would look better than it has, and it has not. But also because Manny Diaz has Bryce Perkins' number. And I told everybody he was overrated. I told you that even though he is a very elusive quarterback, that I respect his legs, he's not a good quarterback. And yet again, I was 100% right in that fashion. However, Miami has looked like such a crapshoot that I took back everything I said as far as us winning and pick Virginia. And sure enough, what happens? Diaz kind of takes over a little bit. Of course, he's saying he's not, but takes over a little bit. And yeah,
He took over a lot more than he let on.
And Bryce Perkins everybody has a number. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, I turned to my wife at the game and I was like, it's just like watching him throw hurts my arm. Like it's just like he literally looks like not to be too mean, but he literally looks like a child trying to throw a football. Like he just it doesn't look right coming out of his hands, and yet he had a couple solid passes, throughout the game. But just when he throws the ball, it hurts my arm to watch him throw. It just doesn't look right. The
yeah.
guy's a loose hell, like you said, and he's a playmaker. He is when he's got the ball in space and he's able to scramble around, he can make plays. But if you keep him in the pocket, I mean, you got a great chance to beat him.
Well, and it's not an indictment on Virginia because when you're a program like Virginia that is way down in the dumps where you're at, and not that the program is at the dump, it was just they weren't winning. And so when you're trying to build something, you kind of put pieces in place that really if you're where you wanted to be, if they were where they wanted to be, Bryce Perkins may not be, at least in my opinion, their guy. But the way they've been able to work around them, hey, that's kudos to Virginia. They look good. They've won some games with them. They're still in control of their own destiny. They're still number one in the ACC Coastal. So, no knock on Virginia, but they're not in a position where they've pulled all the pieces in that they want. And so Bryce Perkins is kind of a filler piece, and he's done well as a filler piece, but he's just not a good quarterback. And that's kind of just what happens when you're not able to, when you're still building a program like that and you play a defense that can match that speed a little bit. And he still tested Miami's defense for sure, but you saw Manny Diaz, I think, kind of made sure Miami's defense got away from that 3-down front for the most part. We still saw it kind of toward there at the end, and they actually capitalized on it. Shocker. And I mean, Virginia capitalized on getting a first down on 3rd and 10 when we went to a 3rd-down front. But you saw him really put 4 down linemen, kind of contain him, and then send a delayed blitz or a spy, and that kind of had his number for the night. Took away his running game for the most part, and then he had to pass, and you see no touchdowns. So no touchdowns last year, no touchdowns this year as far as his passing. And, I think Miami did a good job defensively thanks to
What did you like
how
to?
it's played.
What did you like the most out of the game? What did you like the least? Give me something specific. Don't just say the offense. What is something you liked specifically that they did against Virginia? What do you specifically didn't like that they did against Virginia?
Well, I liked, like I said, specifically on defense, I liked that Miami went down to doing their basic 4-2-5 and give him some mixes with that. So I like
By
that
the
they
way,
just played.
Greg Rousseau is a future first round draft pick. So just gonna put that
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
well we've said that, and then they didn't put him on the field, and that is something. Well, that's not this game, so we'll talk about that later. But I like the defense. I think the defense looked much better, not just because they actually performed well for once, but because they performed well once they did what we all kind of expected, which was play Manny Diaz's defense. Get away from the 3-man, get away from so much zone, play man. And, I really like that. What I didn't like defensively is our defensive backs are not very good. They're just not very good. DJ Ivy, 6 games in, and he's young. I'm not down on him. I think he still has time to be a very good corner. And, Blake Baker mentioned it in his presser that there's some throws that really there's nothing he could have done. But DJ Ivy gets picked on a lot, whether it's getting beat deep, it's, these comeback routes, these slants. I mean, he consistently gets beat. And he's the guy that had a little bit better of a frame and the build to be that like Mike Jackson lockdown corner than maybe even Blades and Bandy. And so I didn't like his game, and our corners as a whole are kind of something that's going to worry me in the future a little bit when we play a team that's got some receivers. Um, Not that we play anybody elite, I don't think, but I didn't really like the game on his end, but that's kind of nitpicking, honestly. The defense did very well. Uh, and, offensively, the play calling was okay. It was a little bit better, not much. So I think that my downside specifically offensively is I like Dan Enos, and we're going to discuss this later, but he creates great opportunities sometimes, but then when he does create good opportunities and we capitalize on it, then we have other times to continue doing that, then he ruins some moments as well. And so it's like as much good as he brings to the offense, I feel like there's been times where he just counteracts the progress with some of his play calling. So
Yeah.
I'm still very much out on his play calling, out on this system. And after that game, even during the game, and we were winning, I was over it. It was, and I think you saw some of my tweets, but I don't know what. Give me something you like, something you hate.
Yeah, so I mean, something I liked. I mean, obviously, like you said, overall the defense just looked night and day. I could tell after the first couple series, I was like, all right, let's roll. Like it looked like finally a Manny defense led defense. They were getting pressure, getting rid of those 3-man fronts. They finally looked like they allowed him to fly around out there and use their athleticism, which is paramount with Manny Diaz defense. Is just kind of let their guys play their game, play loose, and it was finally refreshing to see. Because definitely against Virginia, that's Virginia Tech. That's not the defense we saw. Um, I think finally Gervin Hall is finally starting to take that next step. If you watch the game on TV like I did the other day, he's flying around out there. You could tell he's starting to get comfortable. And I think him and Bubba Bolden back there are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next couple years. And I'm super excited to see them blossom even more because they're getting more and more comfortable out there. And we talked about the type of athletes that they're recruiting with the athleticism. And once they start to feel comfortable, those two back there, they're gonna be night and day. In they're going to beat Jaquan and Redwine with even more athleticism, and that's scary. Um, so obviously, Greg Rousseau played out of his mind. He is a stud. I remember how much everyone touted Jonathan Garvin his freshman year, but Greg Rousseau just looks like a different being out there. 6'5", you know, can stretch it out, can cover guys, great on the pass rush. They even said they nitpicked the other day on like one of the articles and said, "Oh, maybe his run defense, is what he needs to improve on." But then he stopped that 4th and 1 stop where he just mauled the offensive lineman and got right through and just demolished the running back. Something I didn't like. And by the way, like I mean, I am still the jury for me is still out on Daninos. I mean, yes, you watch the game and you kind of it's one of those things that, and we talked about it on Twitter. The first drive he scripts is so beautiful. It's like you're watching like art. Like it finally feels like we have an OC the first drive of the game. Like it looks like he knows what he's doing. And then for some reason, like we talked about it on Twitter, it's like he just doesn't know what to do. He doesn't get the flow of the game. And it's kind of mind boggling to me. It's like if you can put together such a beautiful drive the first drive of the game, why can't you kind of adapt to what's going on in the game? But
Yeah.
I also think people wouldn't be giving him as much of a hard time this week if a lot of things could be a lot different if Nkosi hits two of those deep passes. Nkosi missed Mike Harley going right down the seam, missed him by 2 yards, missed KJ Osborne, missed a couple, and then and then Pope drops that pass, which was an easy touchdown. That was another deep
He
pass.
dropped a pass. Are you kidding? Shocker.
Hey, but he had that he had that huge 35-yard catch in the fourth quarter. So I mean, he redeemed
Yeah.
himself a little bit, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you catch two of those are two touchdowns. We win the game by 20 plus points. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, Danny Enos put up 30 plus points against Virginia." It's one of those things where it's like the personnel just may not be there yet for him, to be honest. And we all talk about how we want him to adapt, but it's just like I for one I loved the Brevin Jordan sweep on third down, but you just watch it develop, and it's just the personnel. No one's
Well, and
blocking. Like no one
that's
doing the
I think
job.
that's what people are mad though. People are
You
upset because it's
want
your
him to.
job. It well, it's your job to know that that's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even against the play because it's something we haven't seen all year. It's something that could have taken them by surprise, but you don't call it on third down when it's a low percentage play because you have a bad offensive line. Like maybe you try that on first down because they expect you to run it up the middle. Maybe you can get that outside edge, see if it works, catch them by surprise. If it doesn't work, you've got two more plays. But you don't run it on third down when it's a low percentage play. You know your offensive line's not good, and you know you're handing to one of your slowest skill guys. You see what I'm saying? Like it just
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
like that's the problem.
One thing I want to say too is, I mean, I think also he got the flow of the game a little bit to his sense that he didn't want. I think he played it safe a lot of the times too. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I think he started to realize, the defense is getting a hold of this game. I got a guy out there, Nkosi. Yeah, he's a playmaker. He can make some plays, but he can also make some really boneheaded plays, throw some picks. You know, have some turnovers and really manipulate the way this game could end. And I think, someone brought it up on Twitter and it made a really good point. It says, I think Dan Enos just felt like he didn't want a mistake to alter the game. So I think it kind of manipulated the way he wanted to call the game. And in sense, like you said, making him play it safe a lot of the times. But in retrospect, it's kind of annoying because it's like you want to put that foot on their throat. So it's kind of like,
No,
defeats.
there's not any. I can't give Dan Enos any leeway on this. Here's the thing. How many we're in the red zone. Here's another play that irks me that he ran several times. Okay, it's a play action. You're under center, play action, because he fakes the handoff, keeps the ball at his waist, and has his back to the defense for about 2 seconds to sell the fake. So not only does he play action the fake, but then he continues to look away from the defense for 2 more seconds
Yeah, let me
to try
cut
to
you off.
sell it, and then and
Cut you off there real quick. Why are these play actions? What do they do? What are they teaching them with this whole like putting the ball to the side and taking like 3 seconds to like
well, no, no,
sell?
no, no, no. This is the thing. It's not a bad play. That's the whole issue that people that are listening need to understand. What he's calling, I've seen other school teams do it. What they're doing is you're literally selling the play action because what quarterback is going to fake the ball and hold it for 2 seconds? Nobody's going to do that. So I've seen other teams with good offensive lines do it because they'll continue to block. It gives them the 2 seconds. It stalls the linebackers or the corners, brings them up a little bit, and then he turns around and makes a throw. But that's why I'm not on board with Dan Enos because your offensive line can't block. So not only are you under center, not only are you play action and it's a slow developing play, but now you're leaving your backup quarterback with his back turned to a good defense for 2 seconds, then wanting him to turn around, find his receivers, read the defense, make a play with point 0.5 seconds of time to throw. And he did it again and again, and it just doesn't work. That's why I'm not on Dan Enos. When your offensive line's not good, you get the ball out quick in any way possible. And you have formations and you have plays to do it. So when people say, well, Dan Enos' offense doesn't work right now because he doesn't have the personnel. Well, no, duh, he doesn't have the personnel. So if you don't have the personnel, do what you said to us when you lied to us, run a spread, adapt to your offense, which he can do because he did it in the last 3 quarters of the Virginia Tech game, and spread it out and throw the ball and run the ball and throw screens. And you've got a million screens you can run with your skill guys. That's why we're out on Dan Enos. It's the tight end sweep on third down. It's the play action like you're saying, and then it's even you get the ball back with a minute and a half to go. You run the ball, which is fine. You go under center, you run it. No arguments there. You have to still try to run. You get 9 yards. It's 2nd and 1. You pick up that first down. It's going to stop the clock, and then you can continue to try to score, or you can just run the clock out, whatever you want to do. But instead of running it up the middle and just getting your easy first down, quarterback sneak, anything, you throw it and stop the clock, and then you get in the shotgun with Dallas, and you run to the short side of the field, backing up 5 yards when you only got to go 1 yard. You know what I mean? And so you knock no time off the field, off the clock. You punt the ball, and they get 3 points. Sure, that's on the defense too, absolutely. But you have to understand that. You have to have a feel for the game. You have to understand, hey, no matter what, score or not, they don't need to get the ball back. We need to go into halftime with the lead. And instead, you knock 10 seconds off, you punt, and they get 3 points. It's just Dan Enos has created opportunities, but then he ruins it down the line. Every game. Not every game, but many games. At this point, we know he doesn't have the offensive line to run the pro. So stop trying to run the pro. Stop it. You don't have it. That's great. It's not that the pro doesn't work. It's not that the pro isn't that the plays he calls aren't good. It's not that you can't trick at offense. It's not that it's not effective when you have the personnel. It's that you don't have the personnel. So run
That's the thing.
spread
That's the thing.
plays.
I think that's the thing. I think he is a good I think he's a good offensive coordinator. But like you said, he's not stubborn is a scary thing to be when you're a coach. And we saw it with Mark Richt. We saw with it, we've seen it for the past 15 years. Al Golden refusing to fire his best friend. Like stubbornness is something that gets guys fired in college football or football alone. So I think Danny Enos is a good offensive coordinator, but like you said, he needs to start realizing what his personnel is and cater to his personnel. Like his play calls are creative. There's at times where it's like, wow, I like that play design, but you don't have the personnel to run it. Like you just said about the Brevin Jordan sweep, like creative play call, but it'd be one thing if you had Wisconsin's offensive line, but you have Miami's offensive line. So that's something that's not going to work. I keep saying this every week. I'm like, this is the week where he's just going to run spread the whole game. And then, he throws little trinkets out there every once in a while that looks like a spread, and then it goes away. And I think I texted you the first drive of the game, the Virginia game, and I said, we're running spread. We scored a touchdown, and then the whole rest of the game, we go back under center, we go back tight again, and I'm just like, why? Like the proof is in the pudding, dude. Every time you do 4 wide, we score points. And then every time you go under center, we can't do anything. It's just you feel like he would realize.
Let's make it easy for your offensive lineman. And here's a second question. Okay, I'm not in the business of calling an 18-year-old kid stupid. Okay, I don't want to call these kids dumb. But there's one of two things, because this is another hot topic that I was screaming on Twitter during that game about firing Butch Berry, and people were getting a little upset. Oh, it's his first year, blah 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 blah. How many times have we seen 5 offensive linemen only have to block 3 guys, and they're not. The opposing defense isn't coming up to the line acting like they're about to blitz. It's clearly a 3-man rush, and Zion or right tackle just doubles the nose and lets the defensive end come free. There's 5 of you. There's 3 of them. Communicate. Talk about it. So one of 2 things are going on, okay? One of 2 options. One, which I think this is the case, is it's 50-50, is Butch Berry is not coaching these kids on how to communicate and what to do in these situations. I don't know if he's just giving them one call and they're doing the same thing every time. I don't know. But Butch Berry's not doing his job coaching. Or it's you would be in your guy's ear and saying, hey, you got to block this guy on a 3 down front. It's common sense. But 2, even if he didn't coach you, are you blind or dumb that you don't know to block the defensive end? is somebody walking up to you and putting $100 bills in your pocket and saying, hey, get your quarterback destroyed. Because those are the only options for these ends, or these tackles, to be as bad as they are. And again, I'm not going to call a kid stupid if I don't have the facts. But making a good case for yourself that you are up there on the IQ ladder when you don't even know how to block one guy in front of you. It's not like you're making a
And it
read
gets to the
or
point,
are blocking a blitz.
and it gets to the point now where it's like, I get what they've been trying to do. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts. Is, they want Zion Nelson to get game reps and gain the experience, but like you're not helping this kid, man, anymore. Like this is like beating a dead horse. Like like the kid, and you can see it. That's the thing. It'd be one thing if his teammates are building him up and trying to like, instill confidence in him. But if you watch on one of the sacks he gives up, you know, against Virginia, you just see Brevin Jordan throwing his hands up in the air. You just see, guys are down. Like, and that's not something you want to see. Like, the kid's a true freshman. The kid is 18 years old. He is playing his first ever college football in his life. Like, you are killing this kid's ever confidence that he's ever going to have at the University of Miami to be a good player. Like, at this point, you got to make a change. You got to put
Well,
someone else.
I'll say this: they asked him. I think they're smart enough to know if there's someone better, they would. It's not that I think, and that's the only place where I'm like, okay,
Got to
they
be
have point
someone
blank
better.
asked him,
Move
but there's
someone.
probably not. Well,
Move.
I mean, they've said they have. They said they've put everyone there, and
Move
he can't
Skates
do
to
it.
left tackle,
They
and
did. They did, and they said he's not better than Zion Nelson. So,
there's
and that's the thing, and
no way.
that's again,
I'm sorry. There's zero.
okay, and so again,
He's
that's
the
why
worst
I'm
offensive
out on
lineman
Dan
I've ever
Enos
seen,
because,
dude. He's the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen.
well,
Like,
again, that's why I'm out on Dan Enos because either you're lying, you're just absolutely lying, or you don't know how to coach these kids because there's no way that we have this many blue chip offensive linemen. And blue chip is, I understand that that's kind of splitting hairs a little bit. However, you still have picked kids that were highly recruited above most of the other ACC Coastal offensive lines, and yet they're the worst, not only in the ACC Coastal, but in the country. You have the worst offensive line in the entire nation. And you've got more recruited talent on that offensive line
like,
than over 80% of the nation. So either you don't know how to coach, which is
like
probably
you got
it.
like you got a guy like Keelan Herbert, who is a 4-star. Big offers from Georgia, Florida, Florida State, all these teams. You got a guy like Hillary that Alabama wanted. Like, come on. Like, and you're telling me
Well,
a
you know what's
two-star
funny?
two-star that
You know,
Appalachian State wanted as a starting as a true freshman. Like, you can't put any of those other guys in and see if they're gonna pan out at least a little bit better. Give up 1 sack instead of 3. Like, I mean, that's
and
better.
they say they have. So either they all, and that's the thing. So another reason I am on the fire Dan Enos. And listen, I'm not saying fire Dan Enos again because I think he's a bad OC. I'm saying fire Dan Enos because this system has no place in Miami. This is no longer the 80s or the 90s. Georgia's a prime example, and we're going to transition into this in a minute. Georgia's a prime example. LSU was a prime example. You can have all the 5 stars. You can have the top 5 offensive line every single year, and you will win 0 national championships in this system in today's society. Unless maybe things go right one year and a lot of teams are down. You're not going to win a championship in this pro-style system anymore. And if Georgia and LSU aren't going to do it, Miami dang sure isn't going to do it. So it's not that I don't want Enos because I think he's dumb. I just think Miami is one. If you really want to run this pro system and make it work like it does at Georgia, because let's not get it twisted. Georgia's a good team. They win lots of ball games. They will compete for playoff spots and championships. But if Georgia can't even get it right with the 5 stars, are we really going to have to sit here for 3, 4, 5 years while they try to build that offensive line, which you need the offensive line to win. You need to win to get recruits, and you're not going to get the recruits for the offensive line unless you win, and you're not going to win if you run a pro that depends on offensive line that you don't have. So if it doesn't work at Georgia, Why in the world would anybody in their right mind think that this pro style system is going to work in Miami, who hasn't had a good offensive line in 20 years? And again, this isn't 01. Schools have better strength and conditioning programs. They have better coaches. The schemes have changed. Players have changed. It's different. So, and even if you play a defense that you can run all over, if the opposing team's offense can score in 2 minutes, then your whole scheme of clock management and eating up idea is just, and it doesn't mean I'm saying don't run the ball or be run heavy, but not in this scheme. There's no place for a Miami offense to only have two receivers on the field. Okay, the whole two tight end sets. I'm over it. It just is. We are if Zion Nelson is the best we have at left tackle, we are years away. Not 1 year, 2 years. You're talking 3 or 4 recruiting classes away from having an offensive line that compete in the playoffs.
No, I
The
agree.
system is. I'm out on it.
All
That's
right,
my
we'll
rant.
move
I'm
on
sorry.
to, you want to move on to talk a little bit of ACC Coastal? We're back in the race, man. We're back in the
Yeah.
race.
So what is So what are we looking at right here? I mean,
I feel like I'm back to
kind
the
of
Al
a
Golden
quick
days. I
version.
feel like I'm back to the Al Golden days where it's like, oh, we need 2 people to lose.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we know Virginia's got to lose another one, which is
Virginia's
going
got
to
to
be
lose
tough.
one, and we win the tiebreaker on that. Pretty much, Miami has to win out. And I do think that's a possibility. The only game that honestly scares the living daylights out of me is FSU. I think I know Pitt beat us a couple years ago at their place, but I mean, if we just show up and play the way we played against Virginia, we can win that game. Louisville at home, that's actually turning out to be a harder game than I expected, but still, it's a home game. I think, especially if we can win those 3 games, we're 6-3 going into that game. We got a lot of momentum, and then you got the Duke game away. So I think honestly, the 2 games that are the toughest is at FSU, just because it's a rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen, and at Duke. I mean, I think those are the two games. If we play the way we played on Friday, are the 2 toughest games that we have left. But pretty much, we need Virginia to lose one, which is definitely possible. I've looked at their schedule. They play at Louisville, which is turning out to be a harder game. They play Duke this week, which they honestly can lose. Um, the teams we want to go ramshed and just beat all the other teams is we want Duke to win a lot of games and we want Pittsburgh to win a lot of games because we control our own destiny with them. They both have 1 loss. If we beat them both, we have the tiebreaker with both of them. So we want them to run ramshed and just start beating all these teams. Beat Virginia, beat North Carolina, beat all these other teams that we don't have tiebreakers with. And so those are the 2 teams we want to start just winning games. Virginia Tech plays North Carolina this weekend. They're actually an underdog at home, which makes me even more mad that we lost to them. But we need Virginia Tech to beat North Carolina because North Carolina needs to lose 2 more games.
Well, we know that either North Carolina or Virginia will lose one more. So one of those 2 teams we don't have to worry about.
No,
They will lose one more.
we need North Carolina to lose 2 more because they have the tiebreaker with us. They've only lost 1 ACC game.
Was there? The other one was Wake. It was Atlantic, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it didn't. No, remember the Wake
Yeah.
didn't count. They
Yep.
counted it just the rivalry game, which is so stupid because we play FSU.
It doesn't count for what?
Yeah, this year they decided that they wanted to resume the rivalry between Wake Forest and North Carolina, but they didn't count it as an ACC game. They just counted it as a regular game. It was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So they technically should have 2 losses in the ACC, but they only have 1.
But
So,
that can't be possible. There's no way that can count as ACC
Look it
game.
up.
But if we lose to Florida State,
I read a story on it because Clemson. Think about it, because you play 1 out of your division. Clemson was
you play two out of your division.
No,
Everybody plays
normally
two.
You normally only play 1, but since we
no
have
no
a
no
rival,
no no we play. No, that's not true. We always play.
No, you normally play 1. It's just because we play FSU every year. Look at any other random team. Look at like Look
So
at
does
like
the other
Duke.
teams play? Does the other teams play five out of conference games? Or I mean,
I
how does that
believe
work?
so, but you only play one across conference opponent per year
I gotta look at this because we've always played twos. I thought everyone played
because we
two.
play
That's
FSU every year.
I understand that, but I thought we had them permanently, just like
No,
Florida, LSU have each other
this was
permanently.
the first time like North Carolina had played Wake Forest in like a long time. So they wanted to resume the rivalry,
One
but
of
it
us
didn't
are about
count.
to look real dumb.
It's so stupid.
Real dumb because
People
there's
were
no
talking about
way.
it on Twitter about how it's like ridiculous, but they have to lose two games still, for us to
I'm gonna
leapfrog
pick a random
because
coastal team. I'm gonna pick a. I'm gonna pick
Big
Pittsburgh real
Duke.
quick and just look. I already picked
Tell
Pittsburgh, but I will look at Duke. They play Boston
telling you,
College.
yeah,
Hold
that's it.
on. Pittsburgh plays Syracuse, Boston College. Uh, right. So Duke. Let's look at Duke. Duke
Oh, so
has
maybe this. I thought it was only one, but
it. Bro, they play Wake Forest and they play Syracuse. I told you, bro. We play two out of division. It is an ACC loss. I don't know
it's
what you
not an
read.
ACC loss. Look at the schedule. Look at the standings. Look at the standings
All right, I'm
right
about to
now.
look at the standings. All right, I'm about to look at these standings because
I'm telling
you
you, it
over
was a big
here
thing on Twitter.
talking
People were pissed
crazy.
off about it. Look,
That's I
North Carolina
mean
took one.
that's literally hold on, but that's literally cheating because if they only get considered one loss, let's say we lose to Florida State, let's say North Carolina gets another loss, so we each have three
Yep.
losses, but they don't
Yep.
count Wakes, and that's not fair.
Yep. Yep. I agree,
Let's see.
but that's the way it is. They're 2-1.
I gotta look at.
I'm looking at it right now. They're 2-1 in the conference. Yep. 2-1 in the conference. I
But
can
they've
look
only
up the
lost
news
one.
article.
I thought they've only lost one ACC game.
They lost to Clemson, but they lost to Wake
That's the
Forest
Clemson.
too.
Lost to Wake. Yeah, you're right. They got them 2-1. You're right. That is incredible. That is incredible. Well, I don't know if anyone knew this. If you're listening to the podcast, North Carolina has lost two ACC games, but unlike Miami, they will not count the Wake Forest game, even though it's an ACC game. That
See,
is
Wake Forest thwarts North Carolina's rally in rare non-conference ACC game.
that just doesn't make any sense at all. That's unreal. Well, it doesn't matter. We have to win out. They need to lose one.
We gotta win out,
So
and I mean, it's definitely possible if we win out because that's just I'll go down real quick.
this is why college football is so flawed. College football is like you make your own rules in certain conferences. You can be Notre Dame, not play a conference game, so you get to avoid one hard game as long as you win the regular season. You don't have to worry about losing the postseason to go to the playoffs or whatever if that's on the line. You can be in the ACC. One team plays someone out of your division, and it counts as an ACC loss, but you can be North Carolina, and it doesn't count. I mean, it's like
Yeah, that's
college football is so
ridiculous.
skewed sometimes.
That's ridiculous, especially look at this example. Like especially Wake Forest is a decent team this year. They're no easy out. So think about it this way: Duke plays Wake Forest second to last game of the season before us. If they lose that game, I'd be pissed because North Carolina they didn't get it counted as an ACC loss. So it's like, why should we that? It's just stupid. I don't really understand that. Especially can you imagine if there's a tie between Duke and North Carolina at the end of the year, for the ACC Coastal, and Duke lost to Wake Forest, but North Carolina lost to Wake Forest, but they didn't count. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, we went out. Hopefully, everyone else has got to do what they got to do. I still don't have huge. I mean, it's a lot of ifs, and I'm still not sold that Miami will win out. Just because we got away with a win on North Carolina, the offense still looks horrible. The offensive line looks bad. Again, not a fan of Dan Enos. Everyone's got to realize we had 48 total yards of offense in the second and third quarters combined. Offense looks like trash. Offensive line looks like trash, and you can't go undefeated with this offense. It's just
how are you feeling?
not going to work.
How are you feeling about the FSU game?
So FSU had lost their number 2 receiver, which is good for us in the sense of since we're talking about defensive backs being a little poor lately, they've lost, which is also good for us. So they're losing guys in key areas. I believe they lost a corner, maybe a starting corner for the season. Not saying that it's good that these kids are hurt, but good for Miami in the sense of some of their better players are not going to be playing against Miami. So, I have confidence in Miami. It's just such a catch-22. It's the battle of whose offensive line will be worse. You know what I mean? And right now, Miami's is worse, which doesn't give me a lot of hope. The play calling is horrible, which sucks because Florida State's defense is absolute garbage. Like it is just their defense is just it's terrible, very very bad. Which made me confident. I would put money on Miami over Florida State, even though we're away. Even though I can't stand the play calling, I would pick Miami over Florida State. I won't get into it too much until the week comes up. But
Yeah, I just get
it's a
your
toss up. It's a toss up,
I
really,
don't
to
know,
me, man. I
man.
mean,
FSU just looks, I don't know, man. And
they don't
and
look like anything.
and it's
They look
funny
like trash.
I could say that, but but then we look terrible against Virginia Tech. So it's like I don't know like what team's gonna show up. So it's like,
If
like
if the team that played Virginia shows up, win. But if it's the same team that we've seen and we do this thing like I said last year, everybody was so confident we were going to destroy them. And I said, look, we always start slow. They're going to have their bet. They're going to scheme up just like Dan Enos does and Stacey Cole, or excuse me, not Stacey Coley, just like James Coley used to do. They're going to scheme up a couple of drives in the beginning, and they're going to try to capitalize on us starting slow. And what do? We started slow. They got a couple of drives, special teams touchdown,
yeah,
jumped up big. Same
yeah.
thing this year.
And
What are we going to
not to cut you off, but I mean, I was leaving the this just reminding me of this conversation. I was leaving the stadium on Saturday. Oh no, on Friday, and this guy that's going down the escalator with me. He's like this guy that's like he had like a like a wife beater on. He just looks like he looked like a real awesome person to society. But he was like yeah, FSU's gonna kill us. Like this is right after we won too. FSU's gonna kill us. Bryles is just gonna he's just gonna make us make us cry. And I turn around to the guy and I'm like, we just beat the team that they lost to, right? And he goes, oh, that doesn't matter. They're getting better. They're getting better each week. Like you can tell. I wonder if that guy really enjoyed them watching Clemson, last week since they're getting just so much better. I'm not saying we would look great against Clemson, but like they're getting so much better. I just thought that was funny. Like, bro, like we just beat a pretty solid Virginia team, and the only thing you can think about is, oh, we're gonna get killed against.
Well, don't get me
FS.
wrong. It's upsetting because we should be going into the Florida State game the last 2 years with confidence, and I've yet to be able to do it. It's like you have to capitalize on Florida State being bad. You know what I mean? Like if you drop a game to a nobody school, that's one thing, but when you lose to Florida State, that's a huge indictment on your recruiting. And so, like, even though I don't agree with him on that they're just gonna absolutely kill us, I mean, it's so frustrating that Florida State is so bad, and yet
Rivalry game.
you're
Every
playing down to them. You're like, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna play down to them. Yeah, it's a rivalry game, and yeah, even Al Golden, it's always gonna be close. Not always, but usually. I mean, even Al
Remember those Jameis Winston teams? We were, I
in
mean,
in a good
we would
area.
always have a tough fight, and we had
Yeah,
no business.
not always though. There's a couple years that there's 42-14, 41-14 type games. You know what I mean? And Miami's got to be able. I know they're not stacked like Florida State was then, but it just you hate to see it. Like if this was a situation where Miami was running the same offense Florida State was, then really you have nothing to argue because Florida State and Miami's offense would be similar. Bad O lines, okay quarterbacks, good running backs. But Miami's defense would be way better because Miami's defense is still better, even as bad as they've been. It's still better than Florida State's, and so I would easily put money on Miami. So it's a toss up. We'll dive into the X's and O's on it when the time comes.
All right, want to jump into talk a little bit about the new top 10 that came out?
Well, I was going to talk about the top 10 that should be because this was a lot hot discussion on Twitter when I posted one the other day. So I'm going to give you my top 10 that I tweeted out, and then you tell me where you agree, where you disagree. Okay, because the top 10 that they currently have out, we all like. Come on, well, we can discuss it too. Go ahead and pull up the current top 10, and I'll pull up my top 10. Okay. And then let me find real quick. Let me pull up what I tweeted out the other day. Okay. So current number one is, who do you got?
You want my number one?
No. I want number one that's actually out there. Like what? Give me. Let's
Oh,
discuss
give
my
me one
top 10.
second.
Like,
Alabama.
man,
Alabama's.
I thought you were on this. Okay,
I was
do it.
Alabama number one.
Okay. So I put LSU. So let's discuss this.
I agree.
Do you agree LSU?
I agree. If
Okay.
you look
So
at the body of work that has happened so far, you can't not pick LSU. They've beaten Texas, they've beaten Florida. They have probably the two best wins of anyone that's in the top 10. So I
much better
mean,
schedule. Much
why
better
not put
schedule.
them number one? That at this point, I mean, it's gonna play itself out regardless because Alabama and LSU play each other. But I mean,
Well,
I,
that's the thing. That's what people got to ask themselves. When you make the rankings, are you making the rankings based off of last year in the past? Because if so, of course you're going to put Alabama and Clemson number one, number two. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the year, who's most likely going to be number one, number two? Alabama, Clemson. And then possibly there's always Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia, right? I mean, of course, maybe not Georgia this year. But if you're going to make the rankings based off the year before and based on what you think is going to happen at the end of the season, then that's how you do it. But I don't believe that's how the rankings should be. I believe the rankings should come out based on the year before, week one, and then according to who you play and how you play and all of those things, then you begin to change it up a little bit. Because right now, clearly LSU looks, based on their schedule, who they've beat, averaging 45 points a game, they look far better.
I don't really think it matters, to be quite honest with you. I mean, at this moment in time, because even if you look at the top 10, um, after Oklahoma, like, yeah, Wisconsin looks good, but after Oklahoma, I think the top four are going to be made out of these five teams: Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. I mean, because after that, you got Wisconsin, which could be an outlier just in case, but Penn State's going nowhere, Notre Dame's going nowhere, Florida's going nowhere, Georgia's going nowhere.
Ah,
Alabama.
but see, but that's the thing is, so you are kind of saying the ranking. You're kind of setting on like the ranking just needs to be what going to end up being. But the one, that's no fun,
No,
and
no, no,
two,
no, 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 no. I'm not saying what it needs to end up being. I'm saying I am fine with putting. I think LSU should be number one. I agree, but I'm saying I don't see it like people that have gripes with the rankings. Like I don't as of right now.
it's
I
just
don't as of right now. I don't think it matters. Like that's just
no.
that's
Well, of course, rankings don't
like
matter. Rankings don't matter in football in general. Your ranking doesn't matter at the end of the year. Who's undefeated? Doesn't matter what place you put somebody. Who's undefeated? What? Blah 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 blah.
I know, but usually you have, guys, teams on the outside, a little bit of the outside, maybe like the seventh, eighth, ninth ranked team. So you could be like, oh, those guys should be higher. Those guys should be creeping up higher to the top four. But I don't see anyone else outside of the fifth spot, Oklahoma, like coming anywhere near the college football
No,
playoff.
I see. No, I disagree. I mean, I don't necessarily see the playoff yet, but this is the first year that Alabama hasn't impressed me with anything. Not that they won't still win, but their defense looks like absolute trash comparatively. I'd take their defense in a second, but it looks like trash in comparison to who they've been. You got four true freshmen on your front seven. You had 24 points put on you by Texas A&M, 28 by was it Mississippi State? I don't remember who it was that they played. They had 28 points put on them. And then they had 30 points, 30 or 31 points put on them by Ole Miss. So even though they have, and the only thing that's bailing them out is, like, if Miami played Alabama right now and they scored 31 points, I'm happy. I'm like, wow, that's quite a bit of points on Alabama defense. 24, 28, that's not bad. Alabama's the opposite of what they used to be, which was heavy defense, low scoring, grind you out. Now they're just putting it all on Tua's shoulders, and we saw where that hurt them last year because if Tua's not on fire, their defense ain't stopping nobody. And yet again, they've played an Ole Miss team on probation and some mediocre teams. You're putting points on them. So if these teams are putting 20 to 30 points on them, what's LSU going to do? You know what I mean? What is an Oklahoma team going to do in the playoffs if they get there, an Ohio State team, something like that. This is the first year that Clemson and Alabama look beatable, mainly because they're both so young on defense. And
Can
that's
we
not an indictment on them. It's just that they're young.
can we talk about too how the SEC bias is real with Georgia right now? They lost to a 2-3 team at home they lost their starting quarterback midway through the game and they only dropped 7 spots. If that was anyone else, they would have dropped 10 spots. Like, I just think that's like
Well,
ridiculous.
and again, I think that is who right now. Let's see, what rank are they right now?
They're 10.
Okay,
4 to 9.
so they're 9. So is there anybody behind them you think is better than them?
I think Auburn's better than them.
I don't. I don't.
I think
Well,
Oregon's
maybe.
better than them.
No, I
Uh,
don't.
dude, did you watch Georgia
I don't.
on
Okay.
Saturday? They
Okay.
looked
I
awful.
understand. I understand. I understand. But I think here's the thing.
Oregon right
South
now,
Carolina still
now,
has some
right
defensive
now,
players.
Oregon on a neutral site would beat Georgia by 14 points.
I don't think so. Maybe.
Or
The
Georgia
issue is
cannot
the
score.
issue is the issue is though you have Will Muschamp coach. You have a Will Muschamp defense you're going up against, getting turnovers. You know what I mean? And yeah, they're still unimpressive. But Oregon is not yet. I think they will be eventually. Oregon's still not yet that team. Oregon lost to a true freshman in Bo Nix, who really isn't that good, and he just threw some balls up in the air and they caught him. So it's not like Oregon's defense is going to shut down. It's not like Oregon's defense is that much better than South Carolina's defense.
Okay,
So
I'll give you one. I'll give you one right now. Texas is better than Georgia. Texas
they
is better.
smashed them last year. But
Better than Georgia, and
yeah,
Texas,
maybe.
has 2 losses, but look at
Oh,
their
that's
2
why.
losses. They lost to Oklahoma by a touchdown, and they lost to LSU by a touchdown.
I get it, but I get it, and that's why we're talking the rankings.
SEC bias.
It is. Well, okay, so we said let's go through this quickly because we're dragging it out. So LSU number 1. Who's number 2?
I'm going Ohio State, to be honest with you.
You think Ohio State's the number 2 team in the country?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so again, I'm doing these rankings based on what I've seen, who's impressed me more, not on who I think is going to win head to head. So my number 2 would be Wisconsin. Wisconsin has the most shutouts of any school in 25 years in a single season. Okay, it's one thing you shut out Central Michigan, which they did. Okay, and it's like, all right, it's Central Michigan. If you shut any team out, it's kind of impressive. And nowadays, in the way football's played nowadays, somebody usually can at least squeak off 3 points. Then you shut out Michigan State. Well, this isn't in order. You shut out Michigan State 38-0. Not only a Michigan State team who isn't really known for offense, but has a very good defense, and Dan Antoni's a very good coach. You shut them out 38-0, which is a far better win than Ohio State's win over Michigan State. And then you shut out USF. What was it? 40-something-0, 42-0.
USF is really bad.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, it's another, and it's a South Florida team.
They couldn't even get 3 points. You can also say that Ohio State shut out Cincinnati 42-0. Cincinnati is a ranked team right now.
Okay, they shut out, and then they beat Nebraska. But my thing is, okay, line me up Michigan. Okay, and Wisconsin smashed Michigan. Was it 35-14? Smashed them. It wasn't even close. So you beat Michigan. You beat Michigan State. You shut out South Florida, CMU, as well as Michigan State. And then Ohio State's beat a bad Nebraska team who we knew was bad. They won pretty well against Michigan State, but not as well as Wisconsin. They haven't played anybody ranked. He hasn't played anybody good. Wisconsin has. They've proven more so far, in my opinion.
All right. I'll give it to you.
Now, if we're basing off of who we think is going to win one-on-one, sure, I would still give Ohio State the edge just because of their offensive power, because I'm anti-pro style offense, and they will eventually turn the ball over once or twice, and Ohio State will capitalize, and Wisconsin can't. But just based off accomplishment. Number 3, who would you got?
We're going strictly based off of what you've done?
Yes.
Oklahoma.
Give me your quick pitch. Why?
I mean, they've just destroyed teams, and I mean, they just beat Texas. I mean, always a tough one. They've destroyed Texas Tech 55-16. Destroyed UCLA. I know UCLA is a shell of himself, But I mean, they just look explosive. Their defense has gotten better. That was always their downfall was their defense. They're just so explosive with Jalen Hurts at the head, and I mean, if their defense is just average at best, I mean, they can win a championship.
You know what?
100%.
You changed my mind. I had Clemson number 3. I had Oklahoma 4. So I'll put Oklahoma 3
All right.
because I
If
agree
you're
with
going
you.
strictly based off of what you've done, I mean,
Well, here's the thing.
I mean, be honest.
Texas A&M was something I was depending on being a quality win for Clemson, which I still think. Yeah, I still think Texas A&M is a solid team. They just have the hardest schedule in football. So Clemson has beat a decent North Carolina team. They beat a Texas A&M team. They've also beat. Have they played South Carolina already?
No, they play them at the end of the year.
Okay, at the end of the season. Okay, so yeah, I'll give you that. Oklahoma looks more impressive, even though Oklahoma up until Texas. Now, if this was a week ago, I'd put Clemson there because Texas is a good team, and Oklahoma's beating everybody. Now, their defense still not impressed. Their defense will cost them a win. They will not win a championship. I don't even think they'll make it to the national championship. But they continue to outscore teams, which is all they depend on. Their no defense is just going to hurt them.
So we're putting Alabama at 5 right now?
I would put Alabama. Yeah, so I would go Oklahoma, Clemson, Alabama 5, absolutely. Because one, your defense has not done anything impressive all season. Duke was probably your best defensive performance, which was impressive. But again, like I said, 20-something points against A&M, 20 or 30 points against Ole Miss, who is on probation, whatever, even though they're known for offense. And I don't remember the other team that they played. I don't care about Alabama football. But giving up a lot of points, Clemson, even though they had a tight game. Oh, excuse me, I'm not even talking about Clemson. Yeah, I would put them there because even though Clemson has at least played, I think, better teams overall. And
so you got Alabama 5, you got OSU 6, I would assume.
Now this is where we start getting into: do you vote on who you played, or do you vote on who would win one-on-one?
Who's the number 6 team in the
Okay,
nation?
I have Auburn number 6, and here's why. Now,
no, over Florida.
Well, here's the issue. Yeah, in all honesty, now at this moment, see, actually, I think did I write this before the weekend? No, I wrote this yesterday. Well, maybe I'm an idiot. No, I wouldn't put them over. I wouldn't put Auburn. Here's the issue: Auburn has played Oregon and has played Florida, and the Florida game was pretty tight. Like if they replayed it, Auburn could win.
But then Florida was in the game.
Yeah, and so I'll swap it. I'll go Alabama 5, Florida 6.
As much as it pains me to do it, Florida is better than Auburn.
Florida 6, yeah. Then I'd put Auburn at 7. Then I would put Ohio State at 8.
Ooh.
I would put Ohio State. Now listen, again, do I think Ohio State can beat some of these other teams? Sure. But have you played anybody? No, you haven't. Alabama, Ohio State, you're wiping your butt on soft carpet.
Ohio State plays Wisconsin in 2 weeks. So
Can't wait. You destroy them by 21 points, I'm all for you being a playoff team. And then 9 and 10, I would put Notre Dame at 9. Played a close game against Georgia, even though now Georgia looks worse. But I think they still played a better schedule than maybe an Oregon or somebody like that. And then I'll put Penn State at 10. Penn State got a good win over Iowa and has
no Boise, bro? No Boise? I'm just
nah.
You realize we sabotaged UCF, right? The moment we brought UCF on the pod, they've lost 2 of 3.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Yeah, so that's just I just think it should be based off of confidence, man. So jump to the next topic. And I don't know if we'll have time for extra college tonight or not, by the way this pod is going. But so this is going to kind of go back to the spread pro style debate because that's just such a hot topic. But Kirby Smart losing to South Carolina this weekend, I just feel like personally, and I'll let you kind of give your thought, I think it just yet again comes down to Kirby Smart wanting to be 2009, 2010 Alabama. He wants to be the pro-style king, run it down your throat, hard-nosed defense, hard-nosed offense, and he is Mark Richt 2.0, in my opinion. And I said this 2 years ago, and I said it when the season started. Mark Richt didn't get fired from Georgia because he's a bad coach. Mark Richt just never adapted. And you cannot run this pro style offense in college football. And it may circulate. There's room for the pro style in college. But once you come across a team, you can't run the ball down their throat. Then you have to put everything on your quarterback's shoulders to just be the guy. And your offense doesn't really give him a ton of options. You always got slow tight ends and two receivers. You know what I mean? Usually. And you can spread it out to 3 or 4. But because you're such 50-50, your personnel isn't designed for being fast. It's designed for being a bolder, slow rolling, eat up clock. And so yet again, we've seen him go 6-6 in year 1, lose to Auburn in year 2, lose to LSU in year 3, and not just lose, get blown out. And now yet again, you lose to South Carolina. You lose to Alabama in the championship. You lose in the playoff. You lose in the SEC championship. Just again and again, other teams have success by adapting. Nick Saban doesn't run full pro anymore. Clemson never has. And now you even see LSU, who has lost every year for almost a decade. And now this year they finally decide, hey, let's go hire an offensive assistant from the Saints to run our passing offense. And now all of a sudden they're scoring 45 points a game. And this is actually an argument that I said at the beginning of the season when we had this debate. Not me and you, but people over Twitter and people on the pod. And I said, when I talked about Miami being built to beat teams like Alabama and Georgia because you have the skill talent, just run the spread and you can beat them. And they said, well, that's counterintuitive because what happens if LSU runs a spread? And they've got all the 5 stars right now. And I looked them in the face and I said, then they would start beating people. All LSU's got to do is change their culture, run a spread. You know what I mean? And you still maintain your run game and good defense. But there's a difference in these teams that score 60 points and can't play defense. There's only a small fraternity of teams that can truly play old school defense, and then all they got to do is adapt to the offense. Like Oregon, it's going to be hard pressed for Oregon. They'll always be a good offensive team, but it's going to be hard for them to have a Alabama, Georgia, Miami, Florida type defense. But some of these southern schools, including Miami, they have that defense. So just adapt the offense that anybody can run. And now you see LSU did it, and you see the success they're having. You see Georgia continuing to be hard-nosed and not change. And with all the 5 stars in the world, it can't save their offense. They still suck. You turn the ball over once or twice, and that's it. You only score 17 points against a not-so-good South Carolina team. So I think, we're talking Georgia, Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart, I promise you, is going to be on his way out very shortly. That's
Mark
my
Richt.
rant number 2. He's Mark Richt 2.0. What do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, what is he in his 4th year now? I mean, yeah,
I
I
think
think so. It's at this point where they need to start seeing results, meaning SEC championships, meaning national championships. I mean, and also, I had this discussion today, and I was thinking about it today. I was like, why are Georgia fans so, not to use the word entitled, but why are they have such high expectations? If you think about it, they've never won anything really, except that one national championship. What's 1980? I mean, for a fan base, that's I think they're a little they think that they're like that redheaded stepchild that's in the SEC that just like always wins 10, 11 games but never really wins anything. Like they don't have any hardware really. Like their national championships, they have one national championship. I mean, they've done nothing in my lifetime. I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like you got a guy like Kirby Smart that's going to win 10, 11 games a year. It's going to give you a chance in the SEC almost every year. Yeah, he may run this pro style attack and you may not win national championships, but I just don't see if they're ever going to get that guy. I just think they have a lot of false expectations, and I think they need to bring him down a notch. I mean, I think Kirby Smart's he's doing a fine job. He's doing great in recruiting, even though he's probably got bags galore. But I mean, it becomes a point as a Georgia fan. It's like, what do you really see yourself doing in the SEC? Because you're always going to have Alabama there, who's won national championships. You're always going to have LSU there, who's won national championships, been way more relevant than you over the last 15, 20 years. You got, Florida, who's won 2 national championships. It's like,
Do you remember I don't know if it was you and I on the pod. I talked about this at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
That
I talked a
that
little
that well, we talked about this a little bit, and I said that
hot seats.
Dan
Didn't we
Mullen
talk
is
about hot
going.
seats?
Yeah, we did, and I said Dan Mullen is going to get Kirby Smart fired. You're
Oh,
going to do it.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I said at the beginning of the season, Dan Mullen is going to get Kirby Smart fired, and what's going to speed this process up is if he loses this year. It's a lot of pressure. Now I still would pick Georgia to win, maybe, but Florida, and they need to be sending bags of money to Kentucky for saving their season and knocking out that retard in whatever that kid's name is with the pubic hair on his chin. But they
Hey,
knocked that kid
the
out.
R word on this podcast, okay?
The what? Oh, whatever. Actually, I can't say that. I got the same stupid goatee. But uh, thank God Kentucky knocked out Franks, and now Florida looks pretty good. And really, if and I was bragging on Dan Mullen, man, during that LSU game into the fourth quarter, and he kind of crapped the bed with some play calling. However, we won't talk about that. But Dan Mullen still head and shoulders better as far as offensive play calling and what he brings. He's bringing in a really good defense that can play against Georgia. And last year, his defense did pretty well for a long time, and they didn't have the offense to really win. Well, Trask looks pretty good, and he will speed this hot seat progress up on Kirby Smart if Kirby Smart doesn't do something soon. And that's why my argument will remain firm that your best case scenario with a pro style offense, especially in a team like Miami, if you want to remain keeping this type of offense, your best bet is sure you get it in here, you get all the 5 stars you want, you get every bit of talent a guy like Danny Nose would need, and the offense is running full tilt, and then you win the Coastal every year. But once you get to Clemson, you're going to lose the majority of the time. I don't want to win one national championship like LSU in 10, 12 years, always being there but never winning it. I don't want to do that because that's all the pro style is going to allow you to do. You're going to play a team that has a defense that can stop it, stop the
But
run,
take
and you're not
that,
going to be built to spread it
but,
out.
but wouldn't you take that after the last 15 years? I would
No,
take
no, no, because you don't have to. No, you don't have to. That's stupid. And like we talked about earlier, why it's such a travesty is you and I are screaming, pull Zion Nelson from left tackle, put somebody there. And the offensive coordinator is looking reporters in the eyes and saying, hey, stupid, we've done that. We put Scaife there. We put these other guys there. They're not better than Zion, and Zion's the worst in the country. So it's not like, even if we land a top 10 class next year, which we're probably not, you're not going to fix the offensive line. So it's going to be bad again the next year. And then maybe it gets a little better because you got some decent recruits this year and maybe next year. It gets a little better, but still not good enough. You're talking 3-4 year project on an offense that it can only work if your offensive line's good. Or you can simply get rid of Enos. Not that he's stupid. He'll go to Alabama and win a national championship as an offensive coordinator because he can do it. He's got the talent. But you run a spread. You bring in, use your speed. You can still use tight. I mean, look at Dan Mullen. People say, what about our tight ends? Or what about Dan Mullen runs a spread, but he'll still get under center and he'll give you different looks and he'll utilize the tight end. It doesn't mean you get rid of getting under center from time to time. It just means you're based on get a guy that's pretty mobile, a guy that can throw, and utilize every aspect of the field. And now you've got LSU finally adapting, and they really look like a team that can beat Alabama in 1 year. Even if it doesn't happen this year, in 1 year they already look like they can upset Alabama just by changing their offense a little bit. So we're going to try to mimic Georgia, who has failed to win anything under a really good coach in Mark Richt, and still, in my opinion, a good coach in Kirby Smart, hasn't won crap. We're going to try to mimic him with a third of the talent, a quarter of the talent. Just doesn't make sense. You see what I'm saying? When you could be winning now. You saw when we went to spread concepts, we scored 35 points in 3 quarters with a backup quarterback and the worst offensive line in college football. And that doesn't tell you what you need to know about what scheme we should run.
No, I agree.
I mean, and I know I'm jumping between Miami and Georgia, but that's the thing is this offense, the pro style offense is destroying Georgia. The fan base is losing their mind, and they have every right to feel relevant. They're a top 5 program right now. Mark Richt has built that program from ashes, brought them back, and has kept them at a clear-cut number 4, number 5, number 3 every year because of one thing, his offensive scheme. And even then, back in the early 2000s when pro styles was still pretty important and relevant, He came close. He was very unlucky from not winning a championship. It's not that you can't win a championship in it, but you're never going to be a consistent go to the playoffs and win every other like Clemson or somebody where every time Clemson's in the playoffs, there's a good chance they can win. You know what I mean? When every team that makes the playoffs, people know one of two things. You're either not going to win because your defense sucks or your offensive scheme sucks. And so when Georgia goes in, it's like, this offensive scheme is going to hurt them. If LSU were to make it before, the offensive scheme is going to hurt you. Everybody else, Oregon's, the Washington, when they made it, the Ohio States, they don't play defense. So hey, Alabama will utilize that. Miami has the defense, and they have the skill talent to be better than everybody at the spread. Run it. Quit running away from it. Run the spread.
We're preaching to the choir here, man. We've been saying this for like 3 episodes.
People argued big time on Twitter this week, and I'm just trying to explain, man. It takes away from depending on our offensive line. Georgia's my prime example.
Run the spread and win the rest of your games.
Do you want to be Georgia? I want to know, do you want to be Georgia? I don't want to be Georgia.
I don't want to be Georgia in a sense that I don't want to run a pro-style offense, but, I mean, after the last 15 years of my life, just watching this team just win absolutely. I know Georgia hasn't won a national championship, but they've won SEC championships. They've been relevant. I will take that for the time being, just so
What have we ran for the last 15 years?
What?
What have we ran offensively for the last 15 years?
We've ran a multiple things.
We've run the persona.
We had some spread concepts.
The closest thing to a spread we've had was under Mark Richt.
Jed Fish ran a couple of spread concepts, stuff like that.
He was the best play caller we've had, where he would put them in the spread and let them run it over. Jed Fish was what I thought Dan Enos would be, right? Because Dan Enos said, "Oh yeah," because Dan Enos said, "We'll be multiple. We'll run pro against teams who can't stop the run. We'll be run heavy. We'll go slow. If we need to go fast, we'll spread it out. We'll utilize our personnel." That's what Jed Fish did. Now I'll give you that. He did do that, and it was hey, they can stop the run on us, but you spread them out because they're big and slow up front. We eat them up. And you watch a guy like Morris over 500 yards, NC State. But that's what I thought Dan Enos would be. That's why I really talked good about Enos when we hired him. I was like, you know what? We need that kind of quarterback coach. We need that kind of experience.
I still have faith. I'm just hoping he adapts.
But that's the thing. Remember you and I talked.
I'm like a beat wife that's just saying he'll change. I feel like
he's not. No. And you and I talked about this at the beginning of the season. We said, remember when I said, when are they practicing these spread plays they talked about? Are they doing it the last 10 minutes of practice all at once? And you're like, well, I trust him, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I should trust him. It never came. He's never going to change. It's going to be run first, run heavy, good scripter. He is James Coley. There's a reason Georgia said, hey, Dan Enos, we want you. And then Miami said, no, we'll pay you a little more. So he came to Miami. And then what did Georgia do? They hired Stacey Coley. So they chose the same guy. We just got what we thought was an upgraded version of Stacey Coley. And so far, he's not. Both great scripters, both good quarterback coaches, good evaluators.
Well, that makes me sad. So,
but it is. I mean that tells you all you need to know about. You realize that there's only like 3 or 4 big name coaches that call a pro offense. And it was the Georgia OC last year, and he left and went to Tennessee. You see how bad Tennessee is under it. So then Georgia needed an OC.
Well, Tennessee's just bad because of the talent.
Yeah, that's fine. Regardless, their offense is absolutely trash. Because what did Pruitt say when he took over Tennessee? We're going to run the ball down people's throat. We're going to impose our will. We're going to bring back old school SEC offense. And he couldn't even do that against Division II.
He's from Alabama. He's all about just imposing your will. But like you said,
even Saban doesn't do it. Saban has the talent to run a basic pro, and he runs concepts of it. He runs a spread with concepts of the pro in it, which is what I'm good with. Which is what I thought Enos would be. That's what I thought a spread coast is. You know what I mean? And sometimes, like, if Saban loses, then he always says, we need to get back to being physical running the ball. And then he'll do it for a little bit, and then he'll depend on his quarterback again because he's changed. That's why he started recruiting guys like Hurts and Tua instead of guys like McCarron and McWayne or whatever, or McElway or whatever his name is. So they all got the swish hairdo and look the same up there in Alabama. But it's just that tells you all you need to know. He tried to hire Enos, then he hired Stacey Coley. They're one and the same. They're the Trinity. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm done with that subject. I apologize, guys, for talking your ears off. I got a couple questions we got from Twitter. Let's discuss that.
Do it.
First question from Gerald Young. He asked a couple of things, actually. Let me find them all. There's a few questions. All right, so he asked, what's the nation's reaction when Jaren hit 21 miles per hour on a pool? I don't really understand that question, so I'm going to skip that one. Do you believe Eno saw a little of Tua in Jaren's play style?
I don't think so. I think honestly, ultimately, and you're also trying to compare him to probably the number 1 pick in the draft next year. So I don't think he saw Tua and Jaren, even though I think Jaren is a quality quarterback. But I think it's mainly he saw the ineptitude he had at offensive line. He kind of saw a lot of the holes he had, and Jaren has always been known to be the safer pick, the smarter quarterback, the guy that's not really going to make a ton of mistakes, except when he got to Virginia Tech when he threw 3 picks in a row. But that was an anomaly and just bad decision making. But he's normally the very safe pick, and I think that's why Enos kind of rode with him. And that's why Diaz liked him as well, just because it was already going to be a tough season just because of a lot of the holes we have. So shooting ourselves in the foot isn't something we wanted to do. So whereas you can go with Perry, where he's a gunslinger, he's going to throw the ball over the yard, but he's also going to make a couple boneheaded plays, and you're just going to have to live with it. So I think they ultimately just went with the safer pick. I think they're both equally as talented, to be honest. They both just bring different things to the table. I think they just ultimately went with the safer pick, to be honest.
So he asks, over or under on 3.5 wins, second half of the regular season, and why? So I got the schedule pulled up, so I'll just
over all day, boy.
I'll read over that. So I would take the over on 3.5 wins. So basically, we're saying there'll be at least 4-2 at the end of the season.
You got
I could
Georgia
see it
Tech,
because
Georgia Tech and FIU are gimmies in my opinion.
So you got 2, and then you got Duke, Louisville, Florida State, Pitt. So if you go 2-2 there, which I think is more than possible, that's 4-2.
You'll beat Louisville at home, I think.
Listen, I think so only because their defense is terrible. But Scott Satterfield is an upset king, and if you go beat Georgia Tech, Pitt, and Florida State all in a row, Louisville's coming to your house to smack you in the mouth because that's what they did at App State. That's what he likes to do. I'm not saying Louisville's going to win. I'm just saying Louisville is just as much of an if to me as Pitt, Florida State, and Duke. I
just think we win 2 of 3 from Pitt, Florida State, and Louisville, at least.
No, I agree. But,
and then you beat Georgia Tech, you beat FIU.
I think you can win 2 of 4 with Duke, Louisville, Florida State, Pitt. But it's a toss-up between 1 and 3 and 2 and 1. I agree,
but then you got FIU, and then you got FIU and Georgia Tech that are gimmies. So that's your other 2 right there. So, I mean, worst case 4, in my opinion.
We'll see. Next question.
We'll see.
Should we be running the ball a lot more with DJ, as good as he is, and the play action looking less of a threat? The play action looks less of a threat because the running game sucks. We do try to run, but now I will say this: we went away from. I'm not a proponent when I yell spread over. Proponent of a Mike Leach offense. I don't want that in Miami. You still need to run the ball. You still need to have a run game. It's essential. The issue is bunching everyone up and clogging the hole when your offensive lineman, if you don't know who to block when there's only 3 guys, how is he going to know who to block when there's 9 guys? So should we run DJ more? Absolutely. Should we run him out of being under center with 2 tight end sets, 12, 11 personnel, whatever? No, we shouldn't. We need to spread it out, run him the same we've been running him, but run him out of a shotgun, some more zone blocking schemes like Mark Richt did, but just add more plays to it so teams can't tee off on it. DJ looked good. Homer looked good. I'm not even a big fan of Homer, and he looked great under a Mark Richt offense, which was vanilla. So, yeah, we should, and the play action would look better. no one's going to buy on the play action when we're under center getting
Yeah, I don't
stuffed.
really understand. I gotta agree with you. I don't really understand why we haven't been running the ball more. If I'm DJ Dallas, I'm peeved and kind of pissed. Um, I mean, it's one of those things where he, in my opinion, he is your best player on offense. He is your most complete player on offense. I mean, he should be getting the ball as much as possible. Him and Brevin are your two proven stars on that offense, in my opinion. So, you got to get the ball in their hands as much as possible. I don't know why they're just completely going away from the run. I mean, even if you're getting a 2-3 yard gain, we all know you keep the defense honest. Just to give up on the run game is just stupid.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Josh Heaton asked, why isn't Perry quarterback one? There should be zero fear of transfer. We have guys coming in, and the guys we have right now are young. Jaron would be a stud right now, but we have one of the worst O-lines in the country, and Kosi always finds a way to make a play. Now, that is something that's been a hot topic. I think I had that written down to talk about tonight. That's kind of been a hot topic. Do you want to tackle that first, or do you think Jaron
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Kosi?
'Cause I mean, I like to think I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. I mean, this is my opinion, so don't. I know there was a lot of heat going on Twitter about this one guy throwing shade at the OBB and insiders and all this stuff, and I'm just giving a fan opinion on what I think is going on. I think Jaron is hurt, but one, I don't think it's as severe as people think it is, and two. I think the coaches are kind of using this as an excuse to make some sort of quarterback battle. I think it's kind of going to be if you listen to Manny Diaz when he talks about Jaron, he says, "Oh, we need to make sure he's healthy, but he also needs to make sure he's doing everything he needs to do to get himself ready for the game." So he's putting that extra. It'd be one thing if it's like, hey, if he's healthy, he's going to start. But he's also saying he needs to do what he needs to do to prepare for the game. So he's kind of leaving it open a little bit, saying like, okay, so he's leaving it open to say, okay, Perry's going to start, and if people ask him, they can say, oh, like we didn't think Jaron prepared well enough for the game. I think he's leaving it open. I do think Perry has a chance to be the quarterback one. He's proven a lot of things to me these last 2 weeks. I mean, Perry's knock last year and even coming into school was he makes a lot of mistakes. He makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes, but he was very, very safe with the ball on Friday. He threw a lot of balls away. He took care of the ball even though he had, 3 or 4 sacks. I mean, I was impressed just because he didn't make any stupid mistakes, which was always his MO of one of his downsides of his play. I hands down think Dakosi is the better choice if he continues to play smart. I think he's more talented. I think he's more of a playmaker. I think he stretches the offense because he has more of an arm. I do think Jaron can be good, but I mean, the offensive line is just too poor at the moment.
Kosi or Jaron? If you had to go with one, who do you think they should play?
I mean, I think Kosi honestly should be QB1. Just because of the situation. Not because I think Jaron can't be a quality quarterback. I just think with the offensive line being as porous as it is, Kosi has that escapability. He's more mobile. He has more of a playmaking ability and playmaking sense where he also can stretch the field with his arm. Especially, it worries me if it's Jaron's right arm that is hurt. I mean, he was already struggled with arm strength before that. To trot him out there, I mean, it's one of those things. I just think right now, we're in the game to win. We're in the business to win games. You need to put I think you tweeted the other day. You need to put the hot hand in. I mean, Cody's comfortable. He's not making mistakes, which is something that I loved to see on Friday. He took care of the ball. He threw a lot of balls away, which his knock in the past was always he's going to make mistakes. He's not the smartest guy when it comes to reading defenses, stuff like that. But on Friday he took care of the ball. He threw the ball away plenty of times. He didn't make any dumb mistakes. But the way our defense was playing was smart, And if he continues to play that way and play smart, he is the best option, in my opinion, because that was always
Yeah.
his not. It's not his talent. The talent is there. Believe me, his
Well, I
talent is
think that, and that's what I agree with you. And a lot of people say Jaron. Look, if you're gonna put Jaron in, then I'm for you doing it against Georgia Tech, so you can kind of get a balance, because that's about the only game you
yeah,
got left until FIU. But
I
I
agree.
think.
If Posey starts Georgia Tech, you ride with him because you're
Well,
not
I mean,
gonna trot Jaron out there at Pittsburgh.
that's what I'm saying, and I think that's why maybe they're debating if they need to put Jaron out there. But I'm with you. I've told a lot of folks, they said, well, Jaron's just hurt. Look, it's not that Jaron's really done anything wrong to lose it, but Kosi came in and blew the doors off Virginia Tech, did enough to beat Virginia. And here's the differences between the two. I don't necessarily believe that Jaron's more elusive than Kosi. Everyone keeps saying, well, he's a lot more elusive. He finds a way to get away from the defense. I've seen Jaron dip, duck, dive, dodge like he's on
I just
dodgeball. You know what I mean? But
I think Kosi
well, he
likes to
doesn't.
make plays.
Well,
He's
he doesn't look to. Well, yeah, that kinda. I agree with that. But Jaron doesn't ever look to run, ever. And like when he'll have it wide open and he won't. Whereas sometimes it's a bad thing. Kosi looks to run too quick, and Jaron doesn't look to run often enough. But it's been working the last two games for Kosi to run when he needed to, and like you said, yeah, take more shots down the field. And when Jaron has taken shots before he was hurt, just was very weak. It was always underthrown. And the one thing that Kosi can do 90% of the time is throw a beautiful deep ball. And you've
Kosi
got
will
to
get
be
it
able to stretch
too
teams.
because everyone says, "Oh, Kosi missed all the deep balls." So his arm strength is awesome, but he missed all the deep balls. The dude
No.
has played sparingly. Give him time to settle in. He'll start hitting those passes. Believe me, once he gets more reps in games, like he didn't start playing until the second half, almost the second half of the Virginia Tech game. You think he's just gonna come in and start just nailing 50-50-yard passes? Like it's gonna just let the kid get some reps. The fact that he's at least finding the guys downfield is what makes me happy. Because even Jaron, Eno said before, Jaron was missing guys that were open downfield. At least Kosi is taking those shots downfield. Like that's good to see.
Stick with the hot hand. I think that's just my opinion.
I agree.
But I still think Jaron's the better overall accuracy wise, and I think he's
No, I agree with that as well. But
I
I
don't
mean,
I don't even think any of his interceptions other than one all year, which was his last one against Virginia Tech, was like a mental error. You know what I mean? I think
yeah.
why I'm such a proponent on not being a big fan of our wide receiving core, because they're so small. You have such a smaller window. That's the thing too, man. If Miami actually had big receivers across the board, not just one or two like we usually have, Darrell Lingham, not an athletic receiver. Lawrence Cager, mediocre, not great hands. And then Amon Richards went out, and you saw what he was able to do. If you look at LSU, Georgia, Florida, a lot of these SEC teams, Alabama, their receivers, one side to the other, maybe aside from a couple slot guys, they're all above 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", but they're not just big. They're very athletic with great hands. Imagine how much better Nkosi would look and Jaron would look if he had the kind of targets those guys have. You've had throughout the years even though I think someone kind of corrected me on Stacy Coley being bigger than I actually thought he was, but you got guys like Dorsett and Barrios, and then you got guys now like Pope and Thomas and Harley, these little bitty receivers, and you're making your quarterback still into these little tiny windows. That's tough, man. Imagine if you had big guys all the way across the board. That would help Miami tremendously. You know what I mean? And so we judge these quarterbacks so bad. Good Lord, they've got to make even more accurate throws than some of these top 10 team quarterbacks.
I agree, man. I agree. We're running a little long here. Maybe we
Yeah,
should.
whatever. That's fine though. Yeah, I got I got to edit this and get this thing ready to go since people are a
Yeah,
little mad at me. I didn't post the last podcast.
not at us saying that we were not getting stuff on Apple Pod and stuff. We're gonna start
Man, it's a
uploading this.
lot. I got some important. I got a football team. I got a coach. I got things going
Oh,
on.
coach of football? Are you the new OC of the Canes?
Yeah, bro. I'm running that spread with these 9-year-olds.
Oh, anyone that's listening, tweet at Kyle and make him come down for the Georgia Tech game.
I'm gonna try. I don't know if I'll be able to or not yet. I'm talking to my wife. I'm
It'll
gonna
be
try.
good.
I wish we had planned it ahead of time.
Why don't you just come down by yourself? You'll need your
Man,
money.
It's a drive. Yeah, that being said, guys, we're going to end the podcast at that. We're actually going to be branching off into a new podcast soon. I don't know. I haven't talked to you yet about this, Kev, so it's up to you if you want to get in on this. We'll be doing a new podcast soon. So the issue right now, guys, with sports, one of the biggest topics is politics, religion, life things. Everyone keeps trying to pull that into sports. I hate it. I don't want anything in sport like talking, bringing religion and politics and current events into sports if it's not sports related. I can't stand it. And I'm not going to do it on this podcast. However, I do enjoy those topics. And so I'm in talks with some other people and since we got kind of following here, any fans that are fans of politics, religion, current events, just your opinion, discussions, it'll be more of a caller and based podcast. We're going to start a new podcast here soon and kind of stay tuned with that. It'll be separate. And I think that'll kind of help fans, which I have to be real careful not to do it on this podcast, separating those two things. So we're going to be starting a new podcast over there, shouting that out on my own podcast so that you guys know. Secondly, you will be in town next week, right?
Next week?
Next Sunday?
I will not. I told you I'm not going to be in town.
What? When are we going to record this next podcast?
No, I'll be home by Sunday.
Oh, that's what I just asked.
Yeah, I'll be home. Yeah, I'm going to Disney next weekend, but I'll be home Sunday.
Disney. Those poor kids trying to wait in line, and you're going to sit there, take up all the lines.
Wine, bro. I'm going to Food and Wine. Going to Epcot.
Bro, you're going to be like 20 minutes from me then. Why don't we hang out?
Come to fucking Food and Wine.
I'll meet up with you. All right, guys. We ran long. We appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for listening to the banter. We'll have some more stuff for you later. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Peace.